Kale stepped off the starship onto the surface of Zytheria, feeling the soft hum of energy beneath his feet. The planet was alive in ways he had never imagined. Crystals taller than buildings jutted from the ground, catching the light of the three suns and scattering it across the sky in bright, shifting rainbows. Rivers floated in the air, twisting and turning like silver ribbons that defied gravity. Strange plants with shimmering leaves and glowing flowers surrounded him, making the air feel electric with life. Everywhere he looked, Zytheria seemed like a dream brought to life. He adjusted his cloak, brushing dust from his boots. Kale had traveled to many worlds, fought in countless battles, and faced dangers that would have terrified ordinary people. But Zytheria felt different. It was peaceful, yet powerful. He could sense that the planet itself had stories to tell, ancient ones that had been whispered across the cosmos for centuries. His mission was simple, but vital: to learn the secrets of Zytheria's past, secrets that might help preserve life throughout the galaxy. Kale walked along a path lined with crystals, his senses alert. Though he was a human, he carried the confidence and calm of someone who had faced fear many times before. As he approached a clearing, he noticed movement among the tall crystal spires. A figure appeared, her long hair catching the light, flowing like liquid silver. She was young, no older than a teenager, and yet her posture radiated authority. "Who are you?" she called, her voice musical but sharp. Her eyes were wide and bright, scanning him as if she could see his soul. "I am Kale," he said, bowing slightly in respect. "I come from the planet Earth. I seek knowledge and friendship." The girl laughed, a sound that was both playful and mocking. "A human? On Zytheria? You must be very brave. Or very foolish." She stepped closer, circling him like a predator examining its prey. "Do you really think you belong here?" Kale smiled faintly, sensing no real malice in her words. "I do not belong anywhere until I have done what I must. I come in peace." She tilted her head, scrutinizing him. "Peace? Ha! You humans are strong in your bodies but weak in your minds. How can you hope to understand the ways of our world?" Before Kale could answer, a sudden cry drew his attention. A small Zytherian child had wandered too close to a sharp crystal and was teetering dangerously. Without hesitation, Kale dashed forward, reaching the child just in time. He lifted the small being into his arms, steadying it with careful hands. "Thank you," the child said, eyes wide with fear and wonder. "You saved me." Kale smiled. "Always be careful near the crystals. They can be beautiful, but they are not forgiving." The girl who had mocked him, Princess Leora, watched in silence, her expression unreadable. For the first time, Kale saw a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. "You actually helped that child," she said slowly, her voice quieter now. "You didn't boast or demand thanks." Kale nodded. "Kindness does not need an audience. It is its own reward." Leora's lips curved into a small, reluctant smile, though she quickly hid it. "Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought," she muttered, turning away and walking toward the palace in the distance. "But do not think that saves you from your next challenge, human." Kale followed, intrigued. The palace itself was carved from crystal, rising like a giant prism from the ground. It shimmered in the sunlight, changing colors as he moved closer. Guards of strange and elegant design watched his approach, their eyes wary but not hostile. Inside, the air was cool and fragrant, filled with the scent of exotic flowers and the faint hum of Zytheria's energy. Leora led him to a large chamber, where several adults sat observing them. At the center was a woman whose presence seemed to fill the room. Her hair was silver like her daughter's, but her aura carried a quiet authority that Kale instinctively recognized. "This is Queen Elira," Leora said with a mixture of pride and teasing. "Mother, this is the human warrior who dares to walk our lands." Queen Elira's eyes studied Kale carefully, yet there was no anger in them. Instead, they held something deeper: curiosity, wisdom, and perhaps even a trace of recognition. "Welcome to Zytheria, Kale," she said. "Your journey here is unusual. but you have already shown bravery and compassion." Kale inclined his head. "I am honored to meet you, Your Majesty. I come with no desire to take or harm. I only seek knowledge and understanding." The queen nodded, her gaze shifting briefly to Leora. "Your manners are commendable, human, but manners alone will not teach you the ways of Scytheria. You must learn through observation and action." Leora snorted softly. "Observation? Action? We'll see how long he lasts," she whispered to herself. Though Kale caught the words, she led him outside to a courtyard, filled with shimmering plants and floating pathways. "I have prepared a challenge for you," Leora announced, smirking. "A test of wit, courage, and humility. If you fail, you leave Scytheria and never return." Kale studied her, noticing the glint of excitement behind her teasing. "And if I succeed?" he asked calmly. "Then maybe, just maybe, you will earn a small measure of respect," she replied, hiding a smile. The first trial was simple in concept but tricky in execution. A crystal maze had been built, filled with twists, turns, and illusions. Kale entered cautiously, noting the subtle shifts in the reflections, the way the light bent and twisted. He relied on logic and observation, following patterns in the maze's design. Each step required careful attention. A wrong move could lead to dead ends or confusion. Hours passed. Kale moved steadily, ignoring Leora's mocking shouts from outside. Eventually, he emerged from the maze, calm and unhurried, holding a rare crystal that symbolized completion. Leora stared, her eyes wide. How did you?" she stammered, unable to form the words. Kale handed her the crystal. "The maze is clever, but it respects those who observe, not those who force their way through." Leora's cheeks flushed with a mixture of anger and admiration. She wanted to challenge him further. Yet she also felt a strange pull toward the human before her. He did not fight for glory, did not seek to dominate. He simply acted with integrity and intelligence, qualities that even the proud princess could not ignore. Kale's first day on Scytheria ended with a quiet reflection. He walked along one of the floating rivers, watching light play across the water suspended in the air. He understood that his journey would not only be about learning Scytheria's secrets, but also about navigating the complex hearts and minds of its people. And somewhere in the palace, Leora sat silently, thinking about the human warrior who had faced her challenges with patience and grace. For the first time, she wondered if humans, so often underestimated, held a strength that even the proudest Scytherian could respect. The sun began to set, bathing the crystals and rivers in gold and pink hues. Kale felt a sense of calm and purpose. His mission was just beginning. But he already sensed that his presence here would leave a mark, not through violence or conquest, but through courage, wisdom, and the quiet power of humanity. As night fell, the stars above Scytheria seemed to shimmer brighter, as if the planet itself had noticed the human who walked its lands with respect and honor. Kale knew that the challenges ahead would be many, but he also knew that each step, each act of kindness and courage, would matter not just to him, but to all those who would come to witness the strength of the human spirit. In the distance, the faint sound of laughter echoed across the crystal forests. Leora's voice carried a mixture of defiance and curiosity. Kale turned toward the sound, smiling softly. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it. And Scytheria, with all its wonders and mysteries, was ready to test the human warrior who walked with honor in his heart. The morning sun rose over Scytheria, painting the floating rivers and crystal forests in shades of gold and pink. Kyle awoke in the guest quarters of the palace, feeling both anticipation and curiosity. Today, he would face the next set of challenges set by Princess Leora. He did not know exactly what she had planned, but he could sense her clever mind was at work. As he walked through the crystal halls toward the courtyard, Kale noticed the reflections of the light dancing off the walls. The palace seemed alive, as if it were watching him, testing him as much as Leora intended. He had learned that observation was often as powerful as action, and he kept his eyes open, noting every detail: the shifts in color, the slight changes in the air, and the small, delicate movements of the guards and servants. Leora was already waiting in the courtyard, her arms crossed and a mischievous smile on her face. "Good morning, human," she said, her voice light yet sharp. "I hope you slept well, because today will be far more challenging than yesterday." Kale nodded. "I am ready. Your trials will teach me much, I am sure." She raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by his calmness. "Very well. The first challenge of the day is one of courage and care. You must retrieve the luminous petals from the grove of the floating flowers. The grove is beautiful, but it is protected by creatures that will test your patience and your ability to act wisely. Many who enter fail, not because they are weak, but because they act hastily." Kale followed her through the palace gates, his eyes taking in the wonders around him. The grove floated above a valley of sparkling crystal formations, each step on the soft moss-like surface sending a gentle hum through the air. He could see flowers glowing in soft shades of blue, pink, and gold, swaying as though they were aware of his presence. And among them were the guardians, massive creatures resembling birds but with wings made of translucent crystal feathers that reflected the sunlight in dazzling patterns. "They are not dangerous if treated with respect," Leora said, almost as if reading his thoughts. "But a wrong move, and they will defend the petals fiercely." Kael approached slowly, observing the creatures from a distance. They were majestic, not aggressive. Yet their eyes followed him closely. He realized that rushing in or trying to grab the petals would only scare them. He took a deep breath, stepped lightly, and moved in harmony with their rhythm. One creature spread its wings, sending ripples of light across the grove. Kael paused, bowing slightly, acknowledging its presence. The creature tilted its head, then stepped aside. Step by step, Kael moved through the grove, selecting the petals carefully. He chose those that were within reach, without disturbing the creatures. When he finally held a handful of glowing petals in his hands, he felt a quiet satisfaction, not pride, but the joy of having acted thoughtfully. Leora watched silently, her arms crossed, lips pursed. For the first time, Kael noticed a flicker of admiration in her expression, quickly hidden by a playful glare. "Not bad," she muttered, though her tone did not carry mockery this time. The next trial was one of strategy. Leora led Kael to the crystal labyrinth, a twisting formation of reflective towers that refracted light in confusing patterns. The goal was simple: retrieve the shard of memory, a small crystal said to hold echoes of Zetheria's ancient past. But the labyrinth was designed to test more than courage. It tested attention, patience, and the ability to understand the mind of another. Kael entered the labyrinth with careful steps. The towers reflected him many times over, making it difficult to know which paths were real and which were illusions. He paused at each turn, observing patterns in the reflections, noting which towers mirrored the same path and which ones created false trails. Slowly, methodically, he navigated through the maze. From outside, Leora tried to distract him. She sent illusions of shifting pathways, creating gentle illusions of danger. Yet Kael remained steady, relying on observation rather than reaction. He found the shard of memory resting on a pedestal of crystal in the center of the labyrinth. The moment he picked it up, a soft hum filled the air, as if the crystal recognized his presence. When he returned, Leora was waiting, her eyes wide. "You actually did it." "Without falling for the illusions," she said, a hint of surprise in her voice. She could not hide her fascination. "How do you do it?" Kael smiled faintly. "Patience and observation. Quick action without thought often leads to mistakes. Sometimes the mind must move slower than the body." The princess looked away, pretending to be unimpressed. But her mind raced. She had expected someone to falter, to make mistakes. But this human had moved through challenges with calm precision. She felt a strange mix of frustration and admiration. He was human, yes, but his qualities were extraordinary in ways that even the Zetherians could respect. The final challenge of the day was one of collaboration. Leora led Kael to a platform suspended above a river of floating crystal orbs. On the platform were puzzle mechanisms that required two people to operate simultaneously, testing communication, trust, and coordination. "You must work together," Leora said. "If you fail, the mechanism will reset, and you must begin again." Kale nodded, observing the puzzle. It involved rotating crystal rings and aligning patterns of light. Leora immediately began manipulating the rings quickly, trying to force a solution. Kale stopped her gently. "Let us observe first. See the pattern. Understand it. Then act together." Leora hesitated, unused to being told how to approach a challenge. But she followed his suggestion. Together, they analyzed the puzzle, each pointing out patterns and movements that the other might miss. Step by step, they aligned the rings, creating a cascade of light that resonated across the platform. The puzzle completed with a gentle hum, and the orbs above shimmered in celebration. Leora's eyes widened in amazement. You actually did it. Together," she exclaimed. For the first time, she smiled openly at KL, her admiration unmasked. "I didn't think a human could manage that." KL inclined his head. "Strength is not only in the body, it is also in cooperation, understanding, and respect. These are qualities found in all intelligent beings, not just humans." As they walked back toward the palace, Leora remained quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, softer than before. "Kale, you are different from anyone I've ever met. You are not just strong or brave. You think, you understand, you care. And that is something even I cannot easily mock." Kale looked at her kindly. "True strength often surprises those who expect only force. Wisdom and heart matter as much as courage." Leora's expression softened, but she quickly returned to her playful teasing. "Don't think this makes me like you," she said with a laugh, though it lacked the sharpness of her earlier taunts. "I am still the princess, and I still set the challenges. But maybe you are worthy of respect, human." Kale smiled. "Respect is earned, not given, and you have shown that even a princess can challenge with grace and intelligence." The day ended with Kale standing on a balcony overlooking Zytheria. The crystal forests glowed under the setting suns, and the floating rivers shimmered like ribbons of silver. He felt a quiet satisfaction, not from winning challenges or earning admiration, but from the knowledge that patience, observation, and kindness had guided his actions. Inside the palace, Leora sat quietly, thinking about the human warrior who had passed her challenges not with force, but with thought and heart. She could not deny the feelings growing inside her: curiosity, respect, and something like admiration. She had expected to see a weak human, but instead she saw someone whose presence demanded reflection and honor. As night fell, Kale looked out over the world, feeling a deep connection to Zytheria. He understood that challenges were not only tests of strength or skill, they were opportunities to build trust, understanding, and relationships. The human spirit, he realized, was not measured by victory or power, but by patience, kindness, and courage. Somewhere in the palace, Leora's laughter echoed softly, a mix of playfulness and wonder. Kale could not see her, but he felt her gaze. The trials of today had not only tested him, they had begun to form a bond between human and Zytherian, one built on respect, intelligence, and shared experience. Kale knew that this was only the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and perhaps answers to questions that neither he nor Leora could yet imagine. But he was ready, as always, to face them with patience, courage, and the quiet strength of humanity. And somewhere deep inside the palace, Queen Alira watched, her expression unreadable. She knew that the human warrior was not merely a visitor. He carried something unique, something powerful, and the bond he was forming with her daughter might change the course of Zytheria's future in ways no one could yet foresee. The stars above shimmered, reflecting in the floating rivers, and Kale felt the sense of something greater beginning. He was not just a human on an alien world, he was a presence that might shape its destiny. not through dominance, but through understanding, kindness, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The next morning, Cytherea glowed with a calm, golden light. Kale walked through the palace gardens, his mind filled with the lessons and challenges of the previous day. The floating rivers reflected the rising suns, and the crystal trees shimmered as if celebrating the quiet harmony of the morning. Despite the beauty, Kale felt a weight in his heart, a sense that today's journey would take him beyond trials of skill or patience and into matters of the heart. Princess Leora approached him with her usual mischievous smile, though it was softer than before. "Good morning, human," she said. "Today's challenges will not be as simple as puzzles or flower groves. Today, you may learn more about Cytherea, and perhaps about yourself." Kale inclined his head respectfully. "I am ready for whatever lessons the day may bring," he replied calmly, sensing that her words carried more meaning than mere challenge. Leora led him to a private chamber in the palace, where the walls were adorned with ancient tapestries depicting events from Cytherea's past. At the center, seated in a chair of crystal and light, was Queen Alira. Her presence filled the room with quiet authority, yet her eyes held a warmth that made Kale feel both welcome and cautious. "Kale," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you have proven yourself in skill, wisdom, and patience. You have faced trials that many would fail, not through lack of strength, but through lack of understanding. But there is a matter now that goes beyond challenges or tests." Kale straightened, sensing the gravity in her tone. "I am ready to listen, Your Majesty," he said. Queen Alira looked toward Leora, who sat quietly, her expression unreadable. "Leora, there is something you must understand. The human before you is not merely a warrior or a guest. He is your parent." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Leora's eyes widened in shock, disbelief flashing across her features. What do you mean?" she stammered. "Kale? My parent?" Kale felt his chest tighten. He had known this day might come, though he had not expected it to arrive so suddenly. "It is true," he said softly, meeting Leora's gaze. "Many years ago, circumstances separated us. I did not know of you, and you did not know of me. But the bond between us has always existed, even if unrecognized." Leora's mind raced. Questions flooded her thoughts. How could this be? Why had no one told her? Why now? She struggled to process the revelation, her usual confidence shaken by the weight of truth. Queen Alira spoke gently, her voice calm and reassuring. Kale was on a mission in a distant part of the galaxy, one that required courage and sacrifice. During that time, events unfolded that neither of you could control. But now, the truth is clear. Kale is your parent, not in the ways of immediate presence, but in ways deeper and lasting. Kale stepped closer, his eyes filled with compassion. "Leora, I know this is overwhelming. I do not expect you to understand everything at once. But know this: my respect, my care, and my protection for you have always been part of who I am. Even when I did not know you existed, I acted in ways that reflected the values I hope to share with you now." Leora looked at him, her emotions conflicting. She felt anger at the absence, confusion at the timing, and yet a growing sense of awe toward the human who had faced her challenges not with dominance, but with patience, courage, and thoughtfulness. "All these challenges, were you testing me?" she asked quietly. Kale shook his head. "No. The challenges were for you to see, and for me to learn about this world and its people. But perhaps, in some ways, they prepared us for this moment." The princess remained silent, her mind turning over memories of the past days. She remembered his patience in the grove of the floating flowers, how he had treated the creatures with respect rather than fear. She remembered the crystal labyrinth, how he had moved calmly, observing and understanding before acting. And she remembered the collaborative puzzle, how he had guided her not with force, but with gentle reasoning and cooperation. He always acted with honor, she whispered. Even when I mocked him, he never lost his patience. He never gave up on kindness. And Queen Alira nodded. That is the human way, Leora. Their strength is not always visible, but it exists in their courage, their respect for life, and their understanding of others. Kale embodies these traits, and now you know why he is important to you, not only as a warrior, but as your parent. Tears welled in Leora's eyes, though she blinked rapidly to hold them back. All this time, I never knew, she said softly. And now, how am I supposed to feel? Kale reached out gently, resting a hand on her shoulder. You may feel confusion, anger, curiosity, or even awe. All of these feelings are natural. What matters is that we begin to understand one another now. There is time to learn, to grow, and to build a bond that is meaningful and real. The princess took a deep breath, struggling to steady herself. She thought of the past challenges, the teasing, the laughter, and even the moments of frustration. Suddenly, it all seemed different, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together into a pattern she had not seen before. I think I understand, she said finally, her voice trembling. You were always someone I could learn from. Even without knowing it, you guided me, protected me, and showed me what strength really is. Kale's eyes softened with quiet pride. And you have learned well, Leora. Your courage, your intelligence, and your wit are all qualities to be proud of. But now, we can share them together, as parent and child. Queen Alira smiled, sensing the subtle shift in her daughter. The bond you form today will be stronger than any test or trial. It is not just blood that connects you, it is respect, understanding, and care. Leora looked down at her hands, then back at Kale. I never expected this, but I think I want to try. To understand. To learn. To be close to you, Kale nodded. There is nothing you need to rush. Trust and connection grow over time. But I am here, always willing to guide and support you. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the soft hum of the palace around them. The weight of the revelation settled, not as a burden, but as a beginning. Leora felt something she had not expected, a sense of belonging. For years, she had carried questions about her place in the world, about her strength and identity. Now, she realized that she was not alone, that someone she could respect and admire was also someone who cared deeply for her. They spent the rest of the morning in conversation. Kale shared stories of his travels across the galaxy, of worlds filled with beauty and danger, of people he had met who had shaped him. Leora listened intently, asking questions and marveling at his experiences. For the first time, she saw him not just as a warrior or a visitor, but as a parent who had lived and learned, whose wisdom could guide her in ways she had never imagined. Queen Alira watched them quietly, feeling a deep sense of relief and hope. She had seen many alliances, friendships, and bonds form in her time as queen, but this was different. The connection between human and Zetherian child had a purity and strength that no power or title could match. It was the bond of mutual respect, understanding, and shared courage. By midday, Leora felt a change within herself. She no longer saw Kale as an outsider to be mocked or tested. She saw him as a guide, a protector, and now, undeniably, a parent. The teasing, once sharp and playful, softened into warmth and curiosity. Kale, in turn, noticed the change in her demeanor. She moved with less defiance, more openness. She asked questions, sought advice, and even laughed freely without hiding behind mockery. It was a bond beginning to grow. Subtle, but undeniable. Kale, she said finally, a smile tugging at her lips. I think I want to face the next challenges together. Not because I must, but because I want to learn from you. Kale's eyes glimmered with quiet approval. Then we shall face them side by side. Together, we can overcome any obstacle, not through force alone, but through wisdom, patience, and understanding. The afternoon passed with more shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Leora felt a new sense of strength, not the kind measured in combat or cunning, but a deeper strength rooted in connection, trust, and shared values. She realized that she had admired Kale long before knowing the truth. But now, that admiration transformed into something profound, a desire to grow, learn, and honor the bond they shared. As the suns of Zytheria began to set, painting the skies in brilliant colors, Kale and Leora walked together along a terrace overlooking the floating rivers. The world below shimmered with life, reflecting the light of their shared understanding and the beginnings of a relationship that would grow stronger with each passing day. Queen Alira watched from her chamber, a serene smile on her face. She knew the revelation of Kale's identity was only the start, but it had already brought about a transformation. The human warrior had not only proven himself through challenges and kindness, but he had also opened the heart of her daughter, teaching her the true meaning of strength, courage, and family. Leora turned to Kale, her eyes shining with unspoken questions and newfound respect. Tomorrow, she said softly, we will face whatever comes next. Together, Kale nodded. Together, he replied, the word carrying weight, hope, and promise. In that moment, Zytheria itself seemed to pulse with quiet approval, the crystals and floating rivers glowing as if celebrating the bond that had formed. Kale was no longer just a visitor or a warrior. He was a parent, a guide, and a part of this world in a way that could never be undone. And Leora, the young princess who had once mocked him, now understood what it meant to see the strength of humanity, not through fear or domination, but through patience, wisdom, and unwavering kindness. She knew that the days ahead would bring more challenges, but she also knew that with Kale by her side, she could face them with courage and heart. The stars above Zytheria began to twinkle as night fell, reflecting in the floating rivers and crystal forests below. Kale and Leora stood together, quiet and thoughtful, ready to step into the future with trust, understanding, and the knowledge that family, whether by blood or by bond, was the greatest strength of all. The next morning on Zytheria was filled with a calm, golden light. But Kale sensed a shift in the air. The floating rivers sparkled, and the crystal forests shimmered as if the planet itself was aware of events to come. Leora met Kale in the palace courtyard, her usual playful expression softened by seriousness. Kale, she said, today will not be like the past challenges. There are visitors approaching Zytheria, outsiders who wish to take our secrets. Not to learn, but to use them for selfish gain. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. He had faced many threats across the galaxy, but he had also learned that force was not always the answer. We will need strategy, patience, and teamwork, he said calmly. We can meet them without unnecessary conflict, showing them the strength of understanding and cooperation. Leora nodded, determination in her eyes. Then let us prepare. Together, they began by assessing Zytheria's defenses, not weapons, but natural barriers and clever mechanisms built into the crystal forests and floating rivers. Kale observed the paths the outsiders would likely take, noting patterns in the floating rivers and the reflections in the crystal towers. Leora assisted him, pointing out subtle shifts in light and movement that even Kale had missed. Their collaboration was seamless, a clear reflection of trust and growing respect. When the outsiders arrived, they were startled to find a world prepared not with aggression, but with ingenuity. Crystals shifted subtly, guiding the intruders along paths that revealed only the beauty and intelligence of Zytheria. Floating bridges rearranged themselves, creating puzzles that the outsiders could not easily bypass. Kale and Leora moved through the palace and forests, guiding the Zytherian people and observing the outsiders. At every step, Kale demonstrated patience and understanding, explaining that force alone could not teach respect or wisdom. Leora applied the lessons she had learned from Kale over the past days, using clever strategies to redirect the intruders without harm, showing them that the strength of Zytheria lay not in dominance, but in intelligence and cooperation. The outsiders, seeing the human and the princess working together, began to change their approach. They hesitated, realizing that this world was not easily conquered, nor would its secrets be taken by those who lacked understanding. Kale approached them calmly, speaking with dignity and authority. "You may come to Zytheria seeking power," he said, "but power without understanding is empty. You cannot take what is given freely. The knowledge of this world belongs to those who respect it, who seek to learn, not to dominate." Leora added, her voice steady and clear. "We will guide those who wish to understand. But we will not allow harm to this planet, its people, or its beauty. You can choose cooperation, or you can leave." The outsiders paused, struck by the combined wisdom and calm authority of Kale and Leora. They had expected conflict and intimidation. But what they encountered instead was strength of a different kind, strength rooted in knowledge, patience, and moral courage. Slowly, they began to retreat, realizing that Zytheria's secrets could not be taken through force or trickery. With the threat gone, the palace and the forests returned to their serene state. Kael and Leora stood together on a terrace overlooking the floating rivers. The suns reflected off the crystal towers, scattering light in dazzling patterns. Leora looked at Kael, a soft smile on her face. "You handled them without fighting," she said, admiration clear in her voice. "I thought humans relied on force, but you taught me a different kind of strength." Kael nodded. "True strength is not measured by the ability to harm, but by the ability to guide, protect, and inspire. Violence is often the easiest path, but it is rarely the right one." Leora considered this. For years, she had valued wit, strategy, and even physical skill, but she realized now that the lessons she had learned from Kael, patience, understanding, and moral courage were the qualities that made someone truly powerful. Queen Elira approached, her expression proud. "You both have shown that true strength lies in unity and wisdom. Kael has not only proven the value of humanity, but has also guided Zytheria in a way that honors our traditions and our future. Leora, you have learned well." Leora bowed slightly, respect in her tone. "I have learned from the best, Mother. And now, I see that Kael is not only my parent, but also my guide and partner in protecting this world." "Oh," Kael placed a gentle hand on Leora's shoulder. "And I have learned from you as well. Wisdom, courage, and creativity are qualities that even a human can admire. Together, we are stronger than either of us alone." They spent the rest of the day walking through the crystal forests, observing the Zytherian people and the floating rivers. Kael shared stories of other worlds he had visited, of civilizations that had thrived through understanding and cooperation. Leora listened intently, asking questions and comparing his experiences to her own knowledge of Zytheria. As they walked, they came across a group of Zytherian children, attempting to navigate a small floating bridge over a river of crystal orbs. The bridge wobbled slightly, and the children looked nervous. Kael and Leora approached them calmly, offering guidance. "Step slowly. Place your hands on the rail, and watch the rhythm of the bridge," Kael instructed. "It will move with you if you respect its motion," Leora added. "And remember, it is okay to ask for help. We are stronger together." One by one, the children crossed safely, their faces lighting up with pride and joy. Leora looked at Kael, realizing that this was another way in which he taught her the importance of patience, guidance, and compassion. His influence extended beyond her alone. It touched all who lived on Zytheria. As evening fell, the skies of Zytheria were painted in brilliant shades of pink and violet. The floating rivers glowed softly, reflecting the fading light. Kael and Leora stood on a cliff overlooking the valley, side by side. "I never thought I would feel this way about a human," Leora said softly. "But now, I understand. Your strength is not just in your skills or courage. It is in your heart." Kael smiled. And your strength lies in your mind, your courage, and your willingness to learn. That is why we make a good team. Queen Alira joined them, her eyes reflecting pride and serenity. You have both proven that the bond between human and Zetherian can be powerful, not because of force, but because of understanding, respect, and love. This is the future of our world. Leora looked at Kael, a sense of certainty and peace in her heart. I am proud to call you my parent, she said, not because of what you are, but because of what you have taught me and the way you lead by example. Kael placed his hand over hers gently. And I am proud to be your parent, Leora. Together, we will face whatever challenges come, guided by patience, courage, and the knowledge that true strength is in protecting and understanding, not in dominating. As night fell, Zetheria's skies glittered with stars, the floating rivers shimmered, and the crystal forests glowed softly in the moonlight. The human warrior and the princess stood together, knowing that their bond had created something far greater than either could have imagined. The outsiders had come seeking secrets, but they had learned an unexpected lesson. That strength without wisdom and understanding is meaningless. Kael and Leora had shown that unity, patience, and moral courage were the true power of Zetheria. The story of the human warrior and the Zetherian princess spread quietly through the planet, not as a tale of conquest, but as an example of harmony, respect, and the extraordinary potential of cooperation between worlds. Humans, with their courage, patience, and wisdom, had proven that even a single being could influence a world in ways no force could. As the first stars twinkled in the night sky, Leora turned to Kael. Thank you. For everything. For showing me what true strength is. For guiding me. And for being my parent. Kael smiled, placing a hand over hers once more. And thank you, Leora, for being willing to learn, to trust, and to grow. Together, we can face any challenge. Queen Alira watched silently from a distance, her heart filled with pride. She knew that the bond between Kael and Leora was stronger than blood alone. It was built on mutual respect, courage, and understanding the true pillars of strength. The world of Zetheria settled into a peaceful night, the floating rivers reflecting the stars above. Kael and Leora, parent and child, warrior and princess, had not only faced external threats, but had strengthened the bonds of family, honor, and morality. Their story became a symbol of hope and inspiration, a reminder that the qualities of humanity, wisdom, patience, courage, and kindness could resonate across worlds. Together, they looked toward the horizon, ready to embrace the future, knowing that no challenge could overpower the strength of unity and understanding. The human warrior had arrived to learn, to guide, and to bond with his child, and in doing so, he had shown that humanity's greatest power lay not in domination, but in heart, mind, and spirit. And so, Zetheria thrived, not through fear or force, but through respect, cooperation, and the enduring bond between a human and the princess he guided, protected, and loved. Their story would be remembered for generations, a testament to the strength of compassion, patience, and the extraordinary courage of the human spirit.